All right, let's dive right in. Today we're going to unpack the story of two huge, foundational covenants that you find in the biblical sources. It's this incredible story about a shift, a move from a really detailed physical blueprint to something much deeper, something internal.
So, to get us started, let me ask you this. What if an incredibly specific, divinely inspired plan for a place of worship, what if it was never actually meant to be the final building? What if it was just a sketch, a shadow pointing to something way, way bigger? That's the core idea we're going to dig into.
So, let's start with that blueprint. The sources describe this first covenant that's built around these meticulous instructions for a physical sanctuary, a specific place where God could literally dwell among the people. We're talking about a tangible, touchable system, something you could see and feel.
And just think about the sheer richness of the materials called for in the book of Exodus. I mean, this isn't just wood and stone. We're talking gold, silver, precious gems, vibrant, expensive textiles. This was never going to be just a simple tent. It was designed to be an absolute masterpiece of craftsmanship and value, all built from what the people willingly offered. It was a way to show just how precious the divine presence was meant to be.
Now, at the very heart of this sanctuary was the Ark of the Covenant. In the instructions in Exodus 25, they were so specific, a chest made of this shittim wood, but then completely covered, inside and out, with pure gold. And its whole purpose was to hold the testimony, the stone tablets with the law written on them. And then, sitting right on top of the ark, you have the mercy seat. It was this solid gold cover, with two golden cherubim on either side. But here's the thing, it wasn't just about the gold. Its real job, its function, was huge. The text says this was the exact spot where God promised he would meet and speak with Moses. This was the point of contact.
The level of detail here is just astounding. I mean, take the candlestick, the menorah. It wasn't just a lamp to hold some candles. It was an intricate sculpture made from a single piece of pure, beaten gold with 7 branches, bowls shaped like almonds, little decorative flowers. Every single element had to be perfect.
And this is where it all clicks. This direct command to Moses in Exodus, it reveals the crucial point behind all these details. The earthly tabernacle wasn't some original human design. Nope. It was meant to be a copy, a physical model of a heavenly pattern that he had been shown on the mountain.
Okay, so you've got this incredible structure. How did it actually work? Well, it wasn't a static museum. It was a dynamic, active place of worship, and it was run by a specially chosen priesthood and centered around this whole system of sacrifices. Just to even begin serving in this place, a priest had to go through this really elaborate 7-day-long ceremony that's detailed in Exodus 29. It involved ritual washing, being dressed in these special holy clothes, being anointed with sacred oil, and then a whole series of very specific animal sacrifices for atonement. It was a physical, sensory, and incredibly complex process.
And the work? It was constant. We're talking non-stop, repetitive. The system required 2 lambs to be offered every single day, one in the morning and one in the evening. This was the continual burnt offering, and it wasn't just some empty ritual. It was a constant, daily reminder of the people's need for atonement and the active status of their agreement with God. And here, the book of Hebrews gives us the key that unlocks this whole system. It explicitly calls what these priests did an example and shadow of heavenly things. So that confirms what Exodus hinted at. This entire earthly setup, the tent, the priests, the sacrifices, it was all a physical model pointing to a bigger, heavenly reality. All right, so if this whole system was so divinely ordered, a shadow of heaven itself, you've got to ask, why did it need to be replaced? The sources point to a fundamental problem, a breaking point that meant this system just couldn't last forever. I mean, this quote from Hebrews just lays it out there, plain and simple. If that first covenant had been perfect, there would have been absolutely no reason to look for a second one. This tells us it had some built-in limitations, and the text points to 2 big problems that made a change necessary.
So reason number 1, and this comes from the prophet Jeremiah, was a problem with the people. The covenant that was made back when they left Egypt, it was a 2-way agreement, but the text says, "They continued not in my covenant." The people themselves broke their side of the deal.
And then there was another issue, a really practical one, with the priesthood itself. Hebrews chapter 7 points out a simple, unavoidable fact. The priests were human. They died.
This meant you had to have a constant line of succession, many priests, one after the other. This created a system that was, by its very nature, temporary. It just didn't have any permanence.
But what's so fascinating about all this is that the solution wasn't some last-minute plan B. It was actually predicted centuries beforehand, through a prophecy that described a completely different kind of covenant.
Right here in the book of Jeremiah, we see this incredible promise. The text announces that a time is coming when a new covenant will be made. And this wasn't going to be a patch or an update on the old system. It was a promise for something fundamentally different.
So how is this new deal supposed to work? Well, the promises were, honestly, game-changing. First, the law would move from being on external stone tablets to the internal landscape of the heart and mind. Second, that intimate knowledge of God wouldn't be just for a special class of priests, it would be available to everyone. And finally, forgiveness would be total and permanent. Sins would be remembered no more. I mean, that is a radical shift from the old way.
And all of this brings us to the resolution. The book of Hebrews presents this new covenant as the fulfillment of that ancient prophecy. It's the reality that the first covenant's shadows were pointing to all along.
The sources really sum up the change by describing a new mediator of a better covenant. And why is it better? Well, because, as the text says, it's established upon better promises, those same promises of internal change and complete forgiveness that Jeremiah talked about hundreds of years earlier.
And here, when you put it all side by side, the contrast is just wow. The law moves from external stone to the internal heart. The priesthood shifts from a long line of mortal men to one single eternal high priest. The sanctuary itself goes from an earthly copy made by man to the true heavenly original. And forgiveness transitions from a system of repetitive sacrifice to a final state where sins are literally remembered no more. In every single way, it's a complete and profound shift from the shadow to the reality.
And the final word from the source on this whole transition, it's pretty definitive. By calling the second covenant new, the text says it has made the first one old. And just like anything that gets old and starts to decay, it's described as being ready to vanish away. The blueprint served its purpose. Now the real thing is here.
And that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. The sources paint this incredible picture of a shift from rules carved in stone to a law that's inscribed on the heart and in the mind. So what does that really mean for a person's relationship with the divine? What does it actually mean to have a law become a part of who you are?